Good evening. It is 6 p.m. This is the regular business meeting of the Sandwich School Committee of January 28th, 2026. We will begin, as always, with the Pledge of Allegiance. I have very squeaky shoes. Apologies. Again, good evening. A reminder, this meeting is being broadcast by Sandwich Community Television via live stream on www.sandwichtv.org and also Sandwich Community Television Education Channel 8, and an audio recording is being made by the Sandwich Enterprise. We'll begin this evening with our first public forum of the evening. Would anybody like to come forward to public forum? If you please sign in, name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes.
My name is Ryan Landon. I live at 3 Greensward Circle. I've been an upstander over the last few years, and nobody has stood up with me. It's okay. When I drive by the Henry T. Wing School and I see the great progress that's been made on affordable housing, I only hope that all of our administrators, principals, vice principals, everybody in this town making over $6,000 gets to jump to the front of the line and live in that affordable housing. That's my definition of level services. Bullying is a problem in every middle school, probably in America, on a daily basis. If you count cyberbullying and bullying in person, bullying is a problem every day. It has been since I was in middle school. The only reason we know about it is when administrators demonstrate so much arrogance that concerned parents have to go to the paper, or so much indifference that parents have to come and speak at this microphone. When I was a 7th grade health teacher, I made the regrettable mistake of calling my classroom of boys and girls. I asked a question, 6 or 8 kids started to yell out the answer. I don't remember what the question was, but I know it had to be a good one because everybody wanted to answer it at once. And I said, boys and girls. And everybody stopped, and I called on one person, and the classroom moved on. At the end of that class, a teacher in the adjoining classroom pulled me aside and said, Did you realize what you said? And I said, no. And she said, you can't say that. I said, I can't say what? She said, you can't call boys and girls, boys and girls. I felt like that dad last month who spoke about his son being labeled homophobic. I was as confused as his autistic son was, because I was, I guess, essentially transphobic. I always thought it was boys and girls and transitioning somewhere in the middle, and some girls felt more masculine and some boys felt more feminine. I did not know that boys and girls was an offensive term in Joseph Merschak's tenure. I encourage that dad to read Thomas Sowell's Inside American Education. It's not just Sandwich, it's not just Massachusetts. That ideology has been systematic for decades if you read that book. Last thing I want to say is I was on Facebook and I saw posted picture, I believe it was debate team or something, in the lobby of Sandwich Middle High School, and in the background I saw these banners, Project Lead the Way, a proud Project Lead the Way school. Inspired by reading Thomas Sowell's book, I Googled, who funds Project Lead the Way? Lockheed Martin and Chevron. So the more bombs we make, the more people we kill, the more books we get, the bigger our checks are. If you're a proud Project Lead the Way school being funded by weapons manufacturers, if $7 out of $10 isn't enough, ask us for $8. We'd rather pay $8 out of every 10, at least I would, than have our students get funded by dropping bombs on people because we need Project Lead the Way to write us a 5, 10, 15, whatever check. It's a budget meeting, so seemed appropriate. Have a great night.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward to public forum? Seeing none, we'll move on to donations.
I think that's an error.
Okay.
There are no donations that I know of in the packet.
Next is review and act on the meeting minutes of our regular business meeting of 14 January.
I make a motion that we review approve the minutes as presented from January 14th.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Menendez, second by Ms. Goodwin. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Passes 6-0. Next up is correspondence and announcements. I have none. Moving on to the superintendent's update.
All right, good evening, everybody. Starting with some good news, and I think right around this time last year, and then the year before that, we reported on the news of how last year's senior class did. I think we reported in August how they did on advanced placement or AP exams. But then kind of taking a look in the aggregate relative to all other high schools across America, Sandwich Middle High School actually ranks amongst the highest in looking at our overall student performance. And every year around this time, they publish an honor roll. And over the last 2 years, we've been been awarded the silver designation. This year, based upon the class of 2025's performance, class of 2025's performance, we actually have moved up to the class to gold. And they look at 3 criteria in looking at all of your senior class. They look at college culture, which is what percentage of your graduating, thank you, Dave. What percentage of your graduating class took at least one AP class before graduating. Then they look at college credit. What percentage of your graduating class scored at least a 3 or higher? And then college orientation. How many of your seniors took 5 or more AP courses during their college career? So you can kind of see the numbers for the class of 25. I think it's stunning, that first one. 65% of the kids took at least one AP in their 4 years. I mean, I think that's impressive. About half, 49%, scored a 3 or higher at least once. And then 15% of kids took 5 or more during their 4 years of high school. So really, really impressive results. I think it speaks volumes about, first and foremost, our students and how serious they take these courses, but also our AP teachers, our staff. I know Kathy Lucas, our guidance director, takes a lot of pride in the work that she does in organizing all things AP. So hats off to everybody. When you're an AP teacher, and this is coming from a former AP chemistry teacher, it really is more than just teaching a course. It really is a vocation. You really have to put a lot of your heart and soul and dedication to it. And just hats off for outstanding work. Yes.
Dr. Miller.
I know this anecdotally, but I don't have hard data on it. Over time, the number of institutions, the number of majors that accept a 3 for college credit has diminished somewhat. Do we have any sense of the schools where our students, our graduates go?
Well,
How that,
yeah, we have a general profile of where our students go, but to kind of answer you with data, and I'm more than happy to do a little digging on it, Sue, we would have to kind of look at that profile of where they go, and then versus are they actually getting 3 college credits for it, and so on. kind of correlate those.
Don't say that as a negative. I mean,
No.
it's still an incredibly strong program. I think it's more a ding on the College Board and AP that is continued to be a heavy selling point for students. And I do know that in certain majors, for example, if you're going to be an engineer, you'd be hard-pressed to find a top-tier school that would accept a 3 in calculus.
Sure.
And it's true of other majors as well. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, the piece that I get anecdotally, and this goes back, with my own experience 40 years ago, I was a chemistry major. I got a 4 on AP English. It was great. That counted 3 credits towards the lit requirement that I had to take in my freshman or sophomore year. So anecdotally, I hear that exists a lot for our students, particularly our STEM students.
If I may, just as a parent of a now college sophomore, a little more recent than a high school senior, I think the answer is it depends. It really, all the schools vary. Some will take a 3, some will take a 4, some only take a 5, some don't count it at all. It really depends on, maybe the relative selective nature of the school or just that individual school's policies. I think in general, I'd make a general statement, there's no data behind this. Like, I think the state schools are a bit more accepting than maybe some of the privates, because the privates, but that's just anecdotal from what I remember from our various
I've had the
applications.
same experience from kids that graduated 20 plus years ago. So similar. So I guess I haven't looked at the information that's presented to families and students, but I would imagine there's some disclaimers mentioned along the way that check with the institutions that you're interested in attending.
I'm sure.
I mean, at the cost of college today, that's a big
Yeah.
benefit for those that can achieve it, so.
And the other part of it is, though, some of the schools want to see the kids take the most challenging courses they can in what that school offers.
Absolutely.
So if the school doesn't offer an AP, as long as the kid's maybe taking that honors, that's what they're sometimes looking for. Is this based on the data? I assume it's just based on the graduating class of 2025?
Correct.
And I know we were silver last year, so
We've moved up to gold, and now they want us to push for platinum. I didn't realize there was a platinum, but apparently there is.
pretty soon there'll be titanium.
Yeah.
Do you remember which? Because we were 2 out of 3 last time for gold. Do you remember which?
The biggest one that we moved up on, because I cite the statistic in our budget documents, is college culture. I believe we moved pretty significantly, something like 10 percentage points on college culture.
Okay. Cool. Any other questions?
Okay, something that's nowhere near as cool or fun was today was the day of the release of the FY27 House 1 budget, which is the governor's budget. It's always released right around noon on the 4th Wednesday of every January. As I stated in the background notes, Governor Healy kind of gave a preview last week at the Mass Municipal Association annual meeting as far as the way the budget would go. But Chapter 70 was funded at $7.6 billion, which is a $242 million increase over this current fiscal year. And like us and approximately, I think we're up to about 70% of districts across the Commonwealth were considered to be a minimum aid district. However, her budget for minimum aid districts is a minimum aid of $75 additional per pupil. So in cross-referencing that with what that would basically mean for our Chapter 70 amount based upon our October 1st enrollment, we're looking at a right now in the process, Chapter 70 to be $8,223,276, which is $159,300 more than the current year, and that represents an increase of 1.98%, so a hair under 2%. So realize when we get to the budget portion and approval of budget, that additional Chapter 70 has been put into the school department's budget. As we've discussed numerous times, all of that is going to facilities and specifically contracted services, and I'll share later in the agenda about the idea, and I've got some statistics to share, Kevin, based upon the Oak Ridge and Forestdale flooring project.
I look forward to it.
Any questions on House 1 budget? Realize just from a timeline perspective, we're still really, really early in the process. Generally speaking, it isn't until about April when the House considers the budget, and then in May it is the Senate. Plenty of amendments. It's usually a better number because there's better estimates that are coming in with regard to projected revenue. And then it goes to conference committee in June. And this year for FY26 was actually the first year in probably a decade where they actually had a budget on time for the start of a fiscal year. So hopefully we'll go 2 for 2 in that category.
Questions? I got one. I know in past years, we haven't included this in the budget, and it's part of the special town meeting. Is this just because we got the numbers before we actually voted?
Yeah, that according to Bill, and Bill communicated with us. I don't know if I think it was in the middle of the storm that that they had the numbers, and he kind of shared the one pager, with the breakdown of the municipal and what they were getting in local aid and the various departments and the school side as well.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none. Next up is December budget update, FY26.
Okay, you have the December report in front of you tonight. Some things to look at. I adjusted the utility encumbrances to make it, I took out my crystal ball to see where it may end up at the end of the year, so I adjusted the encumbrances to see if that would be better for the budget. Another thing that I adjusted was the transportation encumbrance to reflect the actual cost of the contract. And I took out the fuel escalation for now because we haven't received any bills, so
Okay.
hopefully we don't. And the other thing that I want to point out is the ever-increasing number of the special ed tuitions. I was talking to the special ed director, is the number of children in 40-day evaluations, which means could be more placements.
I can't rotate this on my screen, so I had to. You saved it in the wrong way.
So,
I looked at it earlier, but now I can't. Now I'm trying to look
okay.
at it.
Fix that.
So, there's $700,000 more circuit breaker to be applied to the budget, so there's nothing to panic about. But it is an increasing number, and hopefully it's not a trend for the future. You'll see another $400,000 applied in January.
Questions?
Any questions?
Seeing none, we will move on to old business. Verizon cell tower agreement.
So I just ask that we table this issue. I was anticipating by this meeting that I would have a draft agreement to be reviewed by both our and the town's legal counsel, but I have not yet received that from Verizon. But I did communicate with our rep, telling him that we did have interest and we were leaning in the direction of the 40-year agreement with the lump sum payment. So we'll have more details hopefully by the February 11th meeting.
Questions? Seeing none. Moving on to other topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair, I have none. Moving on to new business, the draft of the 2026-2027 school calendar. First reading.
So you have in your packet for consideration the 26-27 school year calendar. I don't think that there's anything dramatically different here. As I note in the background notes, per our policy, we do something that I think is very, very smart as far as doing an adjusted day for our first day for students based upon when Labor Day is. I think Labor Day this year is the latest it could possibly be. It's September 7th, right? Because the first is a Tuesday. So as a result, we're going to be starting with staff that last week of August. And then our first day with students is going to be Wednesday the 2nd. We also, I make the note, I think we got a little spoiled with the holiday break being 12 days this year. We're back to reality, and I think it's something like 8 days next year because Christmas and New Year's, I believe, fall on a Friday, so it's a little bit more compact. Alexis, to our earlier conversation, you can kind of see the built-in last 5 days in June. Little fly in the ointment, seeing that Juneteenth is on a Saturday, so therefore the 18th will be the day that it's celebrated. But, we're not going to have anywhere near the amount of snow next school year like we have this year, he said, optimistically. And then, really, it kind of follows the same pattern, but there was a lot of conversation about our district-wide PD day. We're, after a lot of discussion, kind of moving that to November, to a little bit earlier in the school year. A couple things. We're kind of going to a new consultant and wanting to do a little more in service earlier in the year on inclusive practices. So the mindset of hitting that early along with PD, if you want to pitch in, Dave, also ongoing PD around deeper learning and deeper learning projects. So the mindset was to hit that a little bit earlier.
Yeah, we had the focus for next year will be inclusive practices, particularly around co-teaching model and trying to get a more sustained consultant. We've had a lot of folks who have come on and then, we're going to go into retirement. So there's been a lot of changeover for staff. We're working with Deb Harris, who Jen Healy has a lot of experience with. She's done work in the Commonwealth, Fall River most recently. And the reason for the shift is that we wanted to begin this work to work with our co-teaching teams, but as soon as possible during the year, but also that there's a message that we want all staff to hear regarding how they can be more inclusive in their classrooms, whether or not they're in a co-teaching partnership or not. Waiting till January to have that staff all together at one singular point would just be too delayed in terms of the work that we want to do. So this allows us to get a little bit of a jump, particularly on this project. Also to capitalize on some of the feedback we've gotten from this year's in-service day I think November's kind of like the earliest appropriate where we can start making some adjustments to the school instructional work based on what we're seeing in the first 2 months without getting too far into the year. So that's the rationale behind that.
Any questions? Mine only was just, I get it, and I support the idea of moving it forward if that's what works best for the team. I'm just tactically looking at it as from like a parent's perspective. November 11th is Veterans Day, so that's a holiday. So we have a day off, day on, then 3-day weekend. It seems a little.
Choppy in a sense.
Yeah, choppy. Yeah. I don't know if I have a better. If you do 1 week earlier or 1 week later, or I'm just trying to think.
Or maybe the 20th that would be the Friday before Thanksgiving. Would you do it then? I know, I'm just thinking of absenteeism too, around Thanksgiving week. You know, you might get people that go away, might take off and leave before Thanksgiving. If you did it the 20th, it might give parents an extra day, whereas you're going to go the 11th. I wonder what the absentee rate will be on the 12th if we're off the 13th.
That's kind of what I was thinking too.
Yeah, yeah. I like the
Bring that
idea of
into a
moving
5-day
it,
weekend.
moving it up to November. I think that's a good idea. Because they're just getting back into the swing of things in January and then getting a day off on a Friday.
I know it used to be close to Columbus Day, but you answered that question. That'd be way too early and not enough time for you to have the,
People are just settling into their classroom.
and I get it. So,
Yeah. It's a good idea.
yeah, I support it. I'm just, I don't know.
Will the 6th work better? It's not, it's away from Thanksgiving week, it's away from, there's nothing else that week except conferences in the evening.
They get to 180 one way or another. It's just when.
I know,
I mean, it's a first reading. I mean, you know, you can kick it around and,
Yeah.
like I say, there's no great agenda on my part of it has to be this day. I kind of do a head scratch on that that's the only thing that caught my eye. I mean, I fully supported November, I don't know, maybe just kick it around if a different one of those, either Mondays or Fridays. Would you ever do it on a Monday, or did you want to stick to Friday?
I think Friday's optimal because it gives you the week lead in case there's any sort of like changes that need to happen.
I
That makes
was
sense.
wondering what the absentee rate, like on average, is the week of Thanksgiving. Because I know some families that travel that will make it leave like the Saturday before travel, and the kids will just stay out that Monday, Tuesday, half day, Wednesday. So if you did it the 20th, then it would be one less day that kids would miss, per se.
I think the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, that's where you get more of that phenomenon. However, we did have some of the situation with the PD day around MLK Day.
Weekend, yeah, no. And that's been, I like the November idea better.
Yeah.
I like whatever works best for your staff. I know in the past you wanted to do it a little bit later, and if this is the new sweet spot, that works for me too.
We'll take it back to the district leadership team, and we appreciate your perspective just to add that extra layer to the conversation.
And again, it's not a no, it's like just asking the question.
Oh, I think it's worthwhile.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Any other questions thanks for turning our screens on. The committee thanks you.
And the Christmas break, if you count holidays, it's still 11 days. So it's fine. You count weekends. If you
Yeah,
count
you're right.
everything, It's
Yeah,
still
you're right.
11 days. That's a good chunk of time.
If your next year's senior's like my this year's senior, she's going to complain it's not a full 2 weeks. So. Anyway, any other questions on the calendar? That's just a first reading.
Glasses.
Everything else looks kind of run-of-the-mill. Okay. Next up is, well, we have 2 minutes to the we have iReady benchmark assessments, but we have 2 minutes before our public hearing. So we probably don't necessarily want to get full into that unless you can speak really, really fast. And I'm not trying to
All is well. We're right on track.
rush it at
Yeah.
all. So maybe I'll jump ahead and put Tracy on the spot. Is there any outbrief from the DEIB subcommittee?
Certainly.
You got 2 minutes.
Okay, 1 minute, go.
We can always come back.
We met earlier this evening and heard lots of forward and consistent momentum when it comes to DEIB in Sandwich. So a theme throughout is definitely cohesiveness with the different schools and their efforts to get on the same page, bringing family and community together. There's also now a Cape-wide group of DEIB leaders that meet, and our staff leadership that's involved is really enjoying that and getting a lot out of it. We also heard an update on the athletic front of what's happening, where our student athletes are taking online courses. That's a requirement that happens. Sean Donovan is also planning in April, there's going to be a new event on the Cape for coaches and captains, which sounds like it's going to be really great, addressing hate in schools and in sports. It will be a 2-day training that coaches and athletic captains will participate in, and it will be practical and action-based, which I think is going to be really, really helpful for all involved. Do I have more time?
Sure.
There's more.
We can start a minute late. We just can't start early.
Okay. Oak Ridge is also in the planning stages of having a presentation, Boston Children's Hospital, collaborating with Boston Children's Hospital on cell phone use and how parents can support their children and themselves with cell phone use. So this also, we all agreed, sounds fabulous. And, you know, when we met with the Student Advisory Board, there was a lot of conversation around students of all ages connecting, and that's happening. There's students from the middle high school going to Forestdale. There's connections happening in Oak Ridge. So this is all good news. And that concludes my update.
Thank you. Any questions?
Welcome.
All right. Apologies to keep everybody waiting for 1 minute. But this will be the public budget hearing for the FY27 budget. We do need a motion to open the public hearing, and then we'll do a motion to close it once complete. I'll entertain a motion.
So I make a motion that we open up the public budget hearing at 6:32 p.m.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Menendez, second by Ms. Goodwin. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? I think this has to be roll call. I'm not even sure, but just to play it safe.
Aye.
Aye. Public hearing is open. Would anybody like to come forward at public hearing? If you haven't already, sir, when you're done, if you could make sure your name and address is with the... You can do it afterwards. It's fine. We trust you. And I don't even know what you're going to say. I just want to thank you for coming, because it's not often we actually get somebody.
First one in 2 years.
This is a public hearing, a little bit different than public comment. Public comment is we're just in the receive mode. This can be a discussion. If you have questions, we can answer. So I would just ask you to begin with your name and street, and the floor is yours, sir.
There we go. My name's Jeff Picard. I live on Captain Payne Road. And I'm here as an individual tonight. The reason I say that is I'm also a member of the Finance Committee. But I'm not here representing the Finance Committee. I'll have that opportunity at a later meeting. So I do have a package that was presented at an earlier meeting that I'll use as basis of my questions. I did receive a later copy this evening, but I haven't had a chance to look at that. As far if there's any changes.
It's the only thing that's different, Jeff, is the additional Chapter 70 is accounted for in the updated version.
Right. Thank you. And just quickly, too, I'd say I'm very familiar with public hearings. I used to be on the planning board and have conducted many, so I know how they're conducted, so I appreciate that comment. And I have a number of questions, and sometimes I can come across as people take them as angry or something. I'm just asking questions. I'm not setting a position as to I agree or don't agree. It's just questions I have from reading this document. So sometimes my tone can come across poorly, and I apologize for that ahead of time. So again, I'm going to use the document that's called the Executive Summary, and the other thing I wanted to say was I did have the opportunity to come to the last school committee meeting where some of the presentations were made. I wasn't able to come to the first one where this was made and others were made, but I did get an opportunity to look at all the documents. And what I wanted to say was the one school committee meeting I had the opportunity to go to, I'll see any presentations by all of the individuals from the school. They did a great job. the documentations were easy to read and concise. I appreciate that. This is an excellent executive summary that I had the opportunity to go through. And I've had the opportunity over my life to go through a lot of budgets. So I think it's well done, and it's pretty comprehensive as we go through it. So I appreciate that, and as we go on it. So moving on to, my first question is on page 3. I don't know if you have the document, but I'll let you know.
What I'll do, just for everybody and anybody who's watching on home or on YouTube, what I will do is I will put it up on the screen so everybody can see it.
Great. So on page 3, under student transportation, and I did also get an opportunity to review that document by a consultant, which was had a lot of great detail in it, a lot of information, and looked pretty comprehensive. I think you have, in that presentation, he recommended that you look at consolidating and eliminating 2 bus routes.
Correct.
And 2 questions I had is, one, I know at the last meeting I was at where that was discussed, that was recommended. Is that where is the decision been made that you're going to consolidate 2?
Technically, if the school committee votes this evening to approve the proposed budget, then yes, that de facto would be part of that.
That's how. So in your budgeting that they will look at later for a vote, you accounted for those 2 being eliminated? Is that correct? Okay. And then the other question I had for you, I didn't see it in there. I know there was a study done that looked at altering the start time of 2 of the schools and doing some look at that and so forth. Did you ask a consultant about when you looked at the times that the students were on the bus and when you looked at the capacity of the buses, they were fairly lightly loaded, and the times on the bus were very reasonable. In fact, in comparison to other districts, are very low. So the students are not spending, on average, very much time, nor the capacity of the bus is very high. So did you ask them about consolidating 3 lines out instead, and what that would mean? Because it's like $100,000 per bus eliminated, and his recommendation was 2. And I think at the meeting when I heard him speak, you asked him, someone on the committee asked him, how much time is that going to add? He said like 3 or 4 minutes to the average, which was around 24, 25 minutes. I was going to take it up to just under 30, which is still well below what the quote-unquote district average is. In the report, it never spoke to looking at 3, and I know if you just roughly round up the numbers, it still would keep the capacity low and it would still keep the time low. So I was just curious, did you ask about looking at 3 to the consultant?
If you go through the report, Jeff, you'll see, he talks about 1 and possibly 2. So I do feel like it's really, really important to, what I've learned after 36 years in this business, 15 as a superintendent, something that my mom told me probably in the early 70s, pace yourself, Joey. And I think when it comes to this conversation, as far as, this is going to have to involve reshuffling routes and kind of doing it in an equitable fashion and using software, and then usually it's massaged by hand. So really the short answer is no, we did not explicitly ask, hey, what if we go down to 3? But the options that the consultant put on the table were 1 or 2. So we felt like the 2 we could still do very comfortably.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, somebody did ask, and that was me. I asked, because same view. If 2's, can we get to 3? And I might use the wrong terms from the report. I don't have it in front of me. But they talked about, because it's, what's the term? We have, it's not just, it's not the 5 minutes that makes a deal, but it's also, they have to again,
It's the 45 minutes in the tier levels, yes. I
keeping
understand.
everything in line.
Yeah.
And the way I interpreted that, and maybe this, what I interpreted from the conversation with the consultant was he offered essentially a bit of caution that we don't want to, I'd love to, if we can lose 3, I'd love to do it 2. I think losing 2 is very prudent, and then we settle it, see how it works. And then if we can find a future inefficiency in an out year, maybe we do that, but not draw down too much, and all of a sudden you realize you have a problem that you can't fix once the school year starts and you have all those problems, is how I interpreted it.
No, and I understand all that.
Does
And
that make sense?
it makes sense. The only thing I'd say is that you had a consultant, you had all the information, you had all the data. I'm not suggesting you go to 3. What I'm asking is, did you ask them for the numbers on 3 so that you could look at, like you did, a 1 and a 2 and a 3? I don't think going beyond 3 was reasonable given, like I said, I just did some rough ratioing, and I said, I think 3 would also work. That doesn't mean you go to 3, but it's always great to have information. And you had the consultant, so now if you wanted to know 3, you don't have the data, and you would have to pay to get it. The other thing, sometimes change, I understand what you're saying, incrementally you make change. Sometimes a quick change is actually better. So there's a trade there. I know what your mother was saying, but there's also the opportunity to say, if we're going to disrupt it, let's do it once and not disrupt it this year, then disrupt it next year, and then disrupt it the year after. Especially since it would be different if in my mind, if the pupil ratio, if the number of students we're expecting was coming down, but it looks like it's going to be flat from this year to next year, and it looks like it's going to stay flat for a while. So now is the time to iterate that. And the tools have gotten much better on allocating the buses and the routes and so forth as they've gone forward. So just a question. The other question I had was on that same page. Let me find it here in the paragraph. You said that the FY27 budget contains right-sizing through attrition. And staffing will be appropriately commensurate with student enrollment. How much attrition did you account for in putting the budget together? Just in FTE terms.
A total of 6 FTEs, or I'm sorry, well, of our teaching force, 6 FTEs, and administrative assistant, 1 FTE, and ESPs, 3 FTEs.
So the budget, and again, I'm just reading your statement, which says you're expecting attrition. I was curious what you put in there, because you don't know. I mean, it's an estimate as to where you'll see attrition.
In many cases, Jeff, we do know because
you do know. Okay.
We've gotten notification of retirements.
Okay, thank you. So that's in total 10 is what you just
Correct.
gave me. Right. Thank you. The next question I have is on the next page. I don't see a page number, but I could be
I
missing.
believe it would be page 4.
Yes, page 4. And as shown on this page and earlier in your description, you talked about the average salary changes being 3.31. And there are, looking through that table, there are a few that change significantly more than 3.3. And you talked about the contract that's in place with the teachers. You talked about the COLAs that are in place and so forth, and how that really controls the budget increases we see in salary and so forth. But there were a couple here that are much different. And I was just looking for the background as to why they changed significantly different than the average of 3.3. The one is central office administration, and the other one is special education.
There is the overwhelming majority of the central office administration is the inclusion of 1.0 FTE administrative assistant position, somebody that would be handling both our competitive and non-competitive grant funding, but also we have concerns, as we discussed, I think it was at the first meeting, Jeff. Right now we have one person who handles just payroll, And in working with the town, there's a great deal of concern of, wow, a significant number of people, 400 people, have their payroll person processed by one person. So the mindset is to bring on somebody new in a transition type role that'll work very carefully with the woman who does our payroll and has been for several years.
Okay, so I understand the 9% one is the additional FTE.
Plus,
And then,
COLAs for people who work at central office.
yes, but I thought those were in line with the 3.3. I'm just trying to understand why it's 9, where earlier, and as shown on this page, it's,
So the reason it's 9% is that also includes an additional position.
right, that's what I was saying. That's what I thought. I was just confirming that. And then the change in the special education, which is different than the average?
Yeah, so you can kind of tell, where attrition could potentially be, but also the percentages, while essentially 3.25% is the COLA, we also give step and lane increases based upon years of experience or people moving to advanced degrees and so on. So that's where you're going to get various aberrations based upon your composition of who's in there.
No, and I understand that. And fortunately, I have family members that are teachers.
Okay.
Familiar with
Yeah.
in-steps and getting the advanced degrees and so forth. It's just that one at 10
It's based.
looked like something that would be an FTE change, like the 9 versus in-steps or so forth. And I was just wanted clarification. And again, don't take my comments as it shouldn't be that high. It should be that high.
No.
I'm just trying to understand it.
Yeah, no. I think you're basically talking about, a couple of things actually to be in thinking about this. It is the people that you have in those positions, and a lot of them tend to be kind of younger in their career, and they're still moving up the steps and lane system. But also included in that line are our ESPs, our educational support professionals. And if you followed what we've done, and this is not only a state trend, and it's kind of a national trend, and I know the school committee members that were part of the negotiations 2 years ago with our ESPs, the real push was towards a living wage. A lot of these folks that were in this category were earning somewhere in the 20,000s range. So actually, when you're talking about the COLAs that they've received, something like $2 additional more per hour, it comes out to be more than 3.25%. So I think that's another factor that's built into that fairly large percentage.
Okay, thanks. No, I appreciate that. And when I look at budgets, I look for things that are different.
Sure.
Going up or going down. And
Yep.
really for understanding the basis of what the change, not that it's correct or not correct, because if we don't understand the basis, it may come through, it may not, and that could impact budget performance. The next page on the grants, page 5.
Yep.
I noticed that in FY '27, the projected total is down, from prior years. And is there a reason why we think we're going to be less successful in getting grants?
No. However, there's always a high degree of variability with them. We intentionally go conservative and we budget either status quo or realize at the time, oftentimes from the state, we get projections for cuts in some of our entitlement grants. I think it has been challenging in particularly the last year as far as where we are at the federal level with the U.S. Department of Education, kind of knowing, projecting exactly what we're going to get. So some of those do represent competitive grants. Generally speaking, the ones towards the top are kind of, Title I, Title II, Title IV are, they're known as entitlement grants because they're guaranteed. But a lot of them are competitive grants, and we don't know if, they're money in the bank. I remember last year, your colleague on the FinCom, Bob Guerin, asked me about, a $1,000 loss. And if you look at the line CPPI, I'm sorry, a $1 million loss, not a $1,000 loss. At the time when I was doing the budget presentations, we had not received word whether we got that community partnership grant that kind of builds pre-K programs. We had gotten it in June, so it's reflected here. You might see in some places, right now we've got a loss of, approximately $100,000. It could be some of those competitive grants we just haven't heard on yet.
Okay, thanks. It's good to hear it's conservative because it only can improve on that. And then the FTE that you're putting on, if I understand, is going to be some payroll and some grant management.
Correct.
So that, I would suspect, could help improve maybe the performance here on getting grants?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Hopefully that will happen. Thank you.
Dr. Miller, did you have a comment?
Just a comment that it's important for us to remember that grants are very important. And if you watch the budget presentation of some of the building assistants, we asked the question, what would you want if you could have something else, either via grant or through appropriation? And they were very clear on how. And so my sense is they look for opportunities to find external funding. But the other thing I think as a committee we have to be careful of, and a town we have to be careful of, that we do not approach supplanting our services with grants as opposed to supplementing. And that's happened to some districts, and even in our past, way past, we aggressively go after grants. And then through the fickle nature of funders, sometimes those disappear. And so I think as a school committee member, I can't speak for my colleagues, we encourage our administrators to seek grant opportunities where they can. But as a district, we need to make sure that we appropriate through government funds essential services. So I think we have to be prudent and we have to be creative in seeking grants, but we have to see what services are the district and vis-a-vis the appropriated budget's responsibility to fund. That's just a personal comment.
Ms.
I
Benetti?
appreciate,
Sorry, go ahead.
Nope.
Did you have a comment?
No, I was just thinking when she was saying about supplanting and not supplementing with grant money for positions. I forget, there were a few districts on the Cape, like, I think it was last year's budget, or was it? Yeah, it was last year's budget, where they actually used their COVID relief money to
For
hire-
staffing.
For staffing, and now they ran into budget trouble of asking for like a 10% increase in budget. So we're in a good spot, and I think we look at grant money, in a conservative way, which is smart. But we're usually really successful because of those two sitting right there in the audience that make it work.
And using grant money to kind of pilot initiatives and then evaluate and see if they are really giving the bang for the buck that we might roll over. Because in grants today, and you may well know this, the expectation is that when you get a grant, the district will commit to sustaining that grant. And so, having come from a state higher education institution, where sometimes you can't do that. And so the $50,000 now, you can't guarantee, even before you've even seen the outcomes, that you can sustain it. So.
Back to you, sir.
So let's, for clarity, I was not suggesting that you supplement anything or use the grants to supplement anything. I was asking a question relative to why the trend was down. And the reason for that is
You
that...
meant, not to put words in your mouth, you meant we're not using grants to supplant anything.
I'm sorry, supplant. Yes, the word supplant. I'm sorry. Thank you for that correction.
Yep.
No, I wasn't suggesting that you should be using grants to supplant anything. I was asking a question as to why the numbers are what they are. How you use them is a decision of the schools and the school committee.
And-
What I was interested in knowing is there's a flip side of that, which is if you don't give a best guess as to grants, then you may take money that could better be served elsewhere and budget something that a later grant's going to handle. So it's a two-sided piece. It's a two-sided. They say double-sided sword or knife here. And I think you've done a good job. I was just curious why.
Thank you.
And I think bringing someone on to help manage and grow them is also a great idea as we go forward. So again, don't take my comments as critical.
I
I'm
didn't
just asking
interpret it
clarity.
that, and
Okay.
my comment was more for the people out there.
Oh, okay. Because you went off this avenue, and I was like, I didn't go there. I was just asking a question. Okay, thank you.
You keep offering the disclaimer, sir. Personally, I think this is awesome.
Yeah,
I've been through I think I've sat at this table for 6 budgets, and you're the first one, I think, in 6 years that's come and actually asked pointed questions, and I know you got more to come. But so far, I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question I had is going on to page 9. At the top half of the page, you speak to the student enrollment, and you give a projection for 2026 to 2027. And this has to, okay, yes. And then the bottom half is, I'm trying to remember what section this is district student enrollment and staffing. And then you have the staffing. You didn't give the staffing for 26 to 27, yet you must have an estimate of what it is, or you couldn't have done the salaries.
I do.
Yeah, so what is the total that you can just give me the total that would be down the bottom?
I could provide that to you. Realize we do this process really, really early on in the school year, and I also have contractual requirements with regard to things like non-renewal or layoff notices and things of that nature. I could easily provide that to you. And I think you could probably do some math relatively simple yourself based upon what I told you with regard to attrition. But yeah, I could provide that to you.
I understand. And again, the reason I'm asking is that you have to know it because you've put salaries in here.
certainly
so
have.
you must know your head count, yet it wasn't here. So I was curious to see what it was that you had. Okay. Yeah, if you provide it, it'd be
Sure.
great.
I think
Okay.
I'm coming to you on February 10th, I believe.
I don't recall.
Yeah, February 10th.
And I did notice that similarly, when you decided going into the schools, the same thing. You didn't put the staffing for the schools. The next one at page 13. And again, the thing I look for again is ups and downs. And And downs aren't always a good thing in budgets. Sometimes, you know, we can miss something or underestimate something, and then it comes back to as a risk point. The educational, and I don't fully understand all the terms and what it means and so forth, I say, from FTEs, but on the salaries, I noticed the educational support staff is, you know, it's significant change, and it's a down change. And I was curious why at Forestdale that kind of change is happening. Is there student enrollment? Is there type of students? Because I wasn't sure what educational support staff is.
It has to do with Title I is covering more of the salaries. So the budget, the budget doesn't hold as much of the expense. So one of the grants is covering more of the people.
So when I look on it, so when it says salaries on this page 13, Forestdale school salaries,
Yep.
that's inclusive of what grants are covering? Is that what you're saying?
No, it excludes the amount that the grants are covering.
Okay, excludes the amount.
Yes. So the year before,
So the year before, you didn't exclude it, you have it in there.
no, there was a lesser amount of money in Title I covering those educational support people.
No, there had to be more because, oh, wait, the cost is down because you're getting more Title I?
Yes.
So the.
Got it.
Yeah, so the
I got it.
current fiscal year that we're in.
Yep.
It's a total of 166,016. We're projecting next year an offset of Title I funds to be used towards those positions.
Right. Even though, if I recall correctly, Title I's down next year.
That's what we're
Projecting,
anticipating.
correct.
Yeah, we can, it's a game, it's like a little balancing act.
Okay.
So we think we're gonna get for Title I, and they may take or give more.
Okay. It's just, it's hard to follow when that goes on. Okay, I get it. I understand. The, let's see, I'm now on to page, it's Oak Ridge, I know I can't see my numbers, page 16.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you've answered my question. With respect to, again, it's under the salaries, and it's just looking for, and just, you know, I use it as a bench, not a benchmark, as my point of reference is your 3.3, which you gave. And then I look for what's much higher or much lower and try to understand the differences and why they occur. So on this page, you've explained, I suspect it's the same for the educational support staff and the health services. And then up above under the clerical services, and clerical services is significantly different. I was just curious why. Does that also get some coverage from grants?
No, that would be attrition.
That would be attrition. Okay. So it's understood. All right. Great. Thank you. Okay, I didn't have any question there. The, this had to do with the one FTE in administration, which you've explained, and thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
This is sort of related to budget. I wasn't sure who was going to be here tonight, but I will say it anyways. I did have the opportunity, like I said, to come to the second meeting that you did, where individuals from the school made a presentation. And I don't know this individual, but the head of the special education, Ms. Henley, her
And Healy.
her enthusiasm was unbelievable. I was like, wow, to have a teacher like that. No, nicely done. I just wanted to say that. Under page 27, the, again, I'm using this 3.3 as a guiding light for me. I look at page 27 on the custodial maintenance salaries, and there are, you know, they significantly increase compared to the 3.3. And a reason for that?
Yeah, it's the same piece as the ESPs in negotiating their contracts. It wasn't just a flat 3.25% raise. It was more like $2 an hour and then also moving some of the steps, when you're in the midst of negotiating, what we're going to do is we're going to drop the first step and then add a new step for the top step and so on. So that's why you see that
Okay.
increase.
These are controlled by contract, so that you're
Correct.
reflecting that, yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Got it,
Collective
thank you.
bargaining agreements.
Moving on to next page 28. Saw in the presentation, one of the meeting that I was able to make to you, there's a recommendation to add a van. And I was a little confused by this executive summary, because I think I saw in the beginning that it said the cost of the van is not in this budget, but you want to add a van.
Oh, no, the cost of the van is in the budget.
Okay, it's in the
under-
van. So
Under acquisition of assets.
the question I had is, why do we need an additional vehicle? And it always, in my mind, one thing that I think helps explain, when we explain why we need an additional vehicle, is what were we doing when we didn't have one? What changed that all of a sudden we were able to get by without a van and now we need a van? Because it's more than just the cost of the van, it's insuring the van, it's maintaining the van, it's, operating the van and so forth.
What our maintenance and facilities department usually does is take our old special education vans and they utilize them in their department. So we're getting like 400,000 or 500,000 miles out of these vans. A couple of his vans are non-repairable now, so he needs to go out and actually buy one. And he hasn't done that probably in 4 or 5 years.
So, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think what I'm saying, I heard is that the number of vehicles you have in that department is actually going to go down, because a couple of them have such high mileage that they can't be maintained any longer, and you're bringing on.
Yeah, we'll probably have to surplus them and sell
Okay.
them for scrap or whatever, and then he'll have.
Well, the net's not changing. That's what I was trying to understand is, we increase in the, but it sounds like,
We're not growing the fleet.
We
Yeah,
can't fix
exactly,
them
that's the term.
anymore.
Okay.
Yeah,
They're
I got
just
it.
on being repaired.
so it's more functionable.
okay, thank you. Appreciate that. The next question I had was down under utilities, and earlier in your executive summary, you had spoken to electric's going to go up, the distribution costs, significantly, heat not, and I know I'm seeing that in my own home as we go forward. What I was curious about is that when I go down through that middle of that page, which is 28, here it is, the heat at, and I know it's not exact, but I would expect to see some commonality unless something changed. The heat is going to go up, 2.5%. Electric, 6% at Oak Ridge. You did speak to, I think Oak Ridge was the one with gets air conditioning now, and therefore electric is going to go up. Am I remembering that right from the summary?
Yep.
And then, so then I go to Forestdale, and the heat's going up by quite a bit. And yet, in executive summary, you indicated that the heat wasn't going to go up that much, electric was. And actually, electric goes down by a significant amount. So it was not in line with the general statement you made. So I was curious what's going on at Forestdale that the heat is getting so expensive, and the electric, though, we're actually going to have a saving.
That's something that Mr. Ryan is going to be researching this year, because they're identical buildings, but they've never had identical utility usage. Forestdale has always been more with heat, less with electricity, and Oak Ridge is the other way around. It probably has to do with the control systems. I think there's a different control system in every school, which is another thing that we have to work on to get it all the same. We're starting with the high school, but this budget is more toward usage of the utilities and not just like a 2% or a 10% increase. It's going by previous year.
Right, you look at previous year,
Yeah.
And track.
but then you have to escalate it by your best estimate. And if you're using previous year, even though the two schools are different, percent though change though should be consistent unless something changed.
Well, we're using the 25 expended, and I'm looking at Forestdale Electric. They used 169 in, by the end of the year, so I projected 175, because I obviously projected too much for this year. Well, I hope, knock on wood. It's just a guesstimate. That's what I was trying to go by.
Okay.
Well, it's an extrapolation based
Right.
upon,
Usage.
Yeah.
I have it's a question. I was going to say it's a comment, but it's not a comment. It's a question. It's related to page 30, but it's not on athletics, and it's a question that I like to understand. In this summary, you, as shown on page 30, you share what the salaries and expenses are associated with the athletics. And I understand the value of athletics. I truly do. There are students, though, that can't or choose not to participate in athletics, yet should and need to be also get opportunities at leadership and being on teams and so forth. And there are plenty of opportunities that are non-athletic. And I'm curious to understand, in the budget, did you address that, and where did you address it? You know, do we have funds allocated for the debate team or the math team or things like that? That's my question.
absolutely. So first off, I would say at the middle high school, any student that wants to participate in a sport, and if there is some type of financial issue, their user fee is waived. I know the administration and our athletic director, Sean Donovan, take that extremely seriously. So there's opportunity for kids. If you go into the Sandwich Middle High School budget, the expenses, and then also the Oak Ridge Schools budget under expenses, there is a specific line item that speaks to extra and co-curricular clubs and activities.
Oh, that's under salaries,
Oh, it's under salaries?
because it covers the stipends.
Thank you. So if you'd like me to point out specifically, it is,
What page you're on?
I am on page 19,
Thank you.
Middle of the second section.
and then you can see extracurricular.
Yes.
You see for the Sandwich Middle High School, it's $72,000. And then if you go to page 16 for Oak Ridge, you see extracurricular. That is $30,000. So a little over $100,000 for all types of opportunities. More than happy to share with you what we typically offer at Oak Ridge and also the high school. I can honestly say, and I'm not just saying this, the amount of clubs and opportunities that we offer at both schools is incredible. And they're very much student-driven based upon student interest.
Thank you. So just for clarity and understanding the budget, so when I see the line extracurricular, that's for items that are not athletic.
Correct.
Okay. And you've said it, but let me ask the question a little differently. I think the answer is still yes. And if the students were asked, are there any club opportunities that you'd like to see that aren't being made available? You think, for the most part, you think the students are pleased with the number of opportunities they're getting that are non-athletic?
Without a shadow of a
Leadership?
doubt, yes.
Great. Thank you. Now, and I think it's an important element, and I find it important. I'm glad. The
If I may, sir, also, like, let's say there's a club that's not at the high school, and somebody wants to start it. All they need to do is, go to Ms. Nelson and say, I want to do this. And if they can get I forget what the minimum number of kids is, but it's very small. It's
And a
fine.
faculty sponsor.
And a sponsor, they'll make it happen. And in many cases, that might be a stipend that we didn't budget for, in this cycle, that it's something new in the fall, and, that's why we have Michelle to kind of figure out where we can find that stipend to make that work. But there, and I will echo what the superintendent said, there is I can't tell you the number, there's too many, I can't even think of how many there are, I'll miss too many. I will say, one of the things we did, and in some cases, we've been the victim of our own success because of the number of clubs also at Oak Ridge. There is a small fee that we charge families. It's a one-time fee for the entire year, and the kids can join unlimited clubs, which is great. But all of a sudden, we're paying more stipends, and we needed to find a balance. So we did actually raise that fee slightly last year. Same thing with the athletic fees. In a perfect world, we wouldn't do that. I didn't like to do it. I'm writing that check because I have a student athlete. But we felt from a committee, or at least we did it at the finance subcommittee, and then the full committee felt that was the prudent thing to do because, like you say, not every kid plays sports. I can tell you it's $200 per sport. That does not fully fund each sport. The community supports athletics as part of the educational experience, but it does offset a portion, which allows us to provide all those opportunities to the kids.
So,
The basis of my questions were to ask if the budget, again, I'm just looking at it from a budget perspective, I'm not trying to pass judgment if it's good or bad, but does the budget address non-athletic, and
absolutely.
it does, and it may be helpful in the future, maybe it's only I that have this interest, like you have a page on athletic, you have a page that's non-athletic, just to
Sure.
help, I think, the public, and because again, I'm here as an individual.
We could easily
But-
do
Just a thought.
page showing the Oak Ridge Cursive Club, the Oak Ridge Crochet Club, the Taylor Swift Club.
No, it wasn't,
Not at
I'm not
all.
looking for that. You know how you have a summary for athletic?
Yeah.
And we don't seem to call out non-athletic, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I'm very,
And I just wanted to make sure the budget allows,
very, very proud of the work that we do
Okay.
in that area.
And I'm not saying I'm not, I'm just,
Yeah.
you don't
I get it.
highlight it, and I was just curious why.
The arts program at the high school is great. I love that idea. That's a very valid point for next year to put that in there.
Sure.
So thank you for raising it. I think that helps tell the whole story of the school, so thank you.
The last set of questions I have, and I was trying to figure out how to frame these, at pages 32 and 33, which is, I don't know if I'm reading these tables correctly. I will say that if I am, and this is my first exposure to these types of budgets, there's a lot of transparency in these budgets. Because if I'm understanding this correctly, page 32, that's expenditure per pupil. So that's the budget divided by the number of students? Is that what that is?
District, correct.
In the district. And, if you look in total at the budget, and budgets reflect, both what we want to commit to students in this case, and then, of course, how we use those budgets needs to be effective. In comparison to other school districts, Sandwich is, near the top on expenditure per student. Right? Am I reading that correctly?
I think we're well-funded, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump to page 33 and then come back. In comparison to other schools, districts, we, on a per student basis, we're near the top with administration and operations and maintenance, which may be a good or bad thing. Being near the top is, are we using the funds wisely, or is it costing us more per student than it should? And it's interesting, and I don't know what to make of it when I'm looking at the budget, but when I jump back now to teachers' cost per pupil, we're at the bottom. But as you highlighted earlier, from a performance point of view, and you said it in this document with the MCAS results, the schools are performing well. So I look at this balance in the budget and I say, and I know it's in dollar sense, it's not much, but if you look in a comparison sense, and comparison's always good to help us, just say, gee, does this feel right? And the question I have from a budget perspective is, why are our administrative costs and operations costs so high in comparison to other districts? And yet our teachers' costs us, we're getting a lot of bang for buck with our teachers. Are we getting the same kind of bang for buck with administrative and operations?
So
I'm not saying you are or aren't, I'm just
Asking
using the
questions.
data and asking that question.
So,
And it's if you haven't asked it, it's something you should have asked.
sure, great questions. Realize this, we spent a considerable amount of time during the summer of '24 in negotiations with all 4 of our collective bargaining associations. And when you're tackling that on, you start with the teachers. That's obviously the biggest one. Realize the teachers for many, many years through COVID and even prior to that, they had COLAs in the ballpark of 1.5%. So we did a lot of benchmarking, okay? And we settled on a contract that I think was very fair, but also recognized that we needed to get them up. So hence the 3-year contract that we settled on had COLAs of 3%, 3.25, and 3.25. I have a high degree of confidence, Jeff, that based upon starting with the FY25 data, there will be movement at least much towards the median, the midpoint of that table. With regard to administrative,
And again, I apologize to interrupt, because I was thinking, as I came here this evening and I reviewed these documents, got ready for my questions, is how do I ask this question in such a way that doesn't come across negative? I'm really, again, I love ratios and comparisons. Because budgets, you can get lost in the details.
Mm-hmm.
So you always have to take a step back when you're done and say, does this feel right? And when we say feel right, how does it compare to others, our peers? And that's really what I'm asking here, And it's interesting the data is 24 because, like you say, I was curious why it stopped at 24 because I guess the more recent data isn't available at the 25 data as you go forward. But you think there would be a change in 25
correct.
that might bring this more in balance because it appears to be a little bit out of balance. Why do we got, on a per student basis, why do we got so much here and not so much there? And from a budget perspective, we'd say, okay, let's go back and look at it one more time. That's all I'm suggesting.
Sure. Absolutely.
So I appreciate your time. I've kept you a long time.
Sir,
Thank you.
I'll just say again, indeed, thank you. You kept apologizing. You're not, pointing questions is good. We owe it to the community. And so, at least personally, I'm seeing nods from the rest of the committee. I think you got nothing but appreciation here.
Right.
For you taking the time and effort to come forward and talk to us.
And I do want
Personally
to
appreciate it.
state the packages, and like I said, I've dealt through my experience, lots of budgets. It's well put together, and I was able to go through it and so forth. And it's my first opportunity to be on the finance committee. Some of you may know me, some of you may not. But I just recently got appointed, so my first opportunity to go through this, and very impressed with your staff at the school.
If I could
And I don't have students at the school, so I don't get to meet them otherwise.
And just one alibi, going back to the bus issue, you asked about, did we ever ask what the numbers would be for 3? I never asked that specific question, but I asked about 3. And we had the consultant he was joining us virtually. And because of the timing of the schools, he did not recommend going to 3. I didn't ask him for specific data, but, because I asked that very question. And
No, I understand that, and 'cause I was sitting in the audience for that, and like I say, the document that he prepared I thought was well put together, had a lot of great data in it. I always like to see, boundaries, right? The low side, high side, okay, here's where we're gonna go. So if we're gonna go with 2, what 3 would have looked like? We do know what 1 would have looked like. That's all I was suggesting.
Thank you. Again, thank you very much. Would anybody else like to come forward for public hearing? Apparently, he asked everybody's questions. Again, thank you very much. With that, I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion that we close the public budget hearing tonight.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Menendez, second by Ms. Goodwin. Any discussion? Seeing none. Roll call. Ms. Higgins, Ms. Adams, Dr. Miller, Ms. Goodwin. The hearing is closed. All right. Now we get to go back to iReady benchmark assessments.
This was the one that was in the packet? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having us back. I think we can go as deep or as shallow as you like, but I think the main theme here is we just want to share that everything is right on track and all is really progressing well. Just to kind of give you a high-level overview, this is our calibration point. So we use this to ensure that the data that we're getting from the formative and summative assessments that teachers design line up with a normative benchmark assessment, and also gives us some strategies for kids who may not be achieving at the same level as their peers.
So first we'll present our reading performance results. iReady tests in both the areas of reading and in math. The one little slight update to our slide, which I think we have a copy here, it should actually say reading performance and growth 3 through 8. That was my
Hold on 1 second.
my little error there.
If you
Yeah. I think we're on slide 3. Okay, so the reason behind that adjustment there, where you only see SMHS and Oak Ridge, as we discussed at the last school committee meeting, Forestdale, being obviously our K-2 school, falls under the requirements of the state mandate for an early literacy screener of all students twice a year. So they have a very in-depth screener. We've talked about, it's called Early Bird. It was actually bought out by a company called Imagine Learning this year, so it's the same screener. To give those students the iReady reading test would be duplicative in the results that we get. That screener is fully approved and sanctioned by DESE, so that's what we have shifted to at Forestdale, which is why they're not reflected in this particular graphic. We are just finishing up with 1st and 2nd grade for that screener at Forestdale. Kindergarten is assessed with those screeners in February, only because for the first screener of the year in kindergarten, we wait until mid-November so that we're not greeting kindergartners in September with a literacy screener. So that then pushes back their winter screener to mid-February. So if you would like, I'd be happy to come back after we've finished our screeners at Forestdale and give you those results. So for this evening, we have our iReady reading performance for grades 3 through 8. And that being said, so I don't know if you can see the gray gradations here on this graphic, but the ideal is to be in the top right corner of this graphic, which indicates that from the fall to the winter, each school in totality had both high performance and high growth. So we are pleased that both of our schools fall in that quartile. And to give you exact data, this represents that Sandwich Middle High School had median growth of 100%, which means the median student, if we took all of our 7th and 8th grade students, the median range was that they've already made a year's growth, 100% growth. The goal is, the minimal goal is 50%, so we're quite pleased they're at 100% growth as the median. The other data point incorporated here is the grade level performance. Currently, 58% of the 7th and 8th graders are meeting the mid 7th and 8th grade level of reading performance. At Oak Ridge, their growth, they have 92% median growth, which is, again, fantastic, as the goal is really 50%. the 100% growth is really expected by year's end, so we're very pleased that our students are achieving so high at the midpoint. And they have 65% of students in grades 3 through 6 achieving on grade level at this point. This is just a slightly more detailed representation of the data. So you see in the diagnostic 2, so that's our winter diagnostic, which we just wrapped up. And just to the right of that, again, in kind of a more faded triangle, we have diagnostic 1. So as you can see, we're looking for growth of the green. So in tier 1, those are the students, that represents the percentage of students performing on grade level. The yellow band is tier 2, students that are within 1 year below grade level. And then red at the top, those are students that are 2 years or more below grade level according to their performance on this iReady assessment.
What's the domains on the right-hand side there?
So those are the domains, different domains of reading. So the abbreviations stand for, the top is phonemic awareness, and then the PH is for phonics. HW is high frequency words, and then it's vocabulary, and then literature, so it's comprehension of literature, comprehension of fiction, and then informational, which is comprehension of informational text. So you see the green really also in diagnostic 1 in those first 3 categories. It's important to keep this in the context of this. These are our 3rd graders on up. So when we look at the Forestdale results, of course, kindergartners, 1st graders, they don't always start the year all on grade level in those areas, but of course our goal is to get them there. So we're pleased that even in the fall with diagnostic 1, they came into 3rd grade very strong. And this is just a breakdown between of the 2 schools. They're actually quite comparable. Again, with diagnostic 1 in September and then diagnostic 2 in January.
And then turning our attention to math, as you'll notice that we have all 3 schools represented. So we do keep the iReady diagnostic for our Forestdale students. Again, for the most part, we're in that upper right-hand quadrant, with the Sandwich Middle High School being right on the fringe there. They're at 46% growth, but reaching a 61% in terms of their percentile achievement relative to the national norm. Oak Ridge growth is at 65% with 60% achievement level. And then we have Forestdale leading the pack with 72% growth and 58% for their overall performance. And again, positive trends across the board here in terms of more and more students reaching that at or early grade level, up from 35% now at 60% of students meeting that tier. Our tier 2 is also shrinking down to 33%, and even at our at-risk tier is down from 12% down to 7%. And then this just gives a breakdown on the different schools in terms of the growth, the achievement gains for each of the levels. I think the other thing that's really excellent as well is that you're seeing the Sandwich Middle High School uses a different curriculum resource. With the Reveal, it has a partner ALEX software, and you're seeing that the data on iReady is consistent with the data in ALEX. So we have a nice opportunity to be able to triangulate the achievement for our students. And as we dig deeper into the data, it suggests that we're right on track with where we would expect to be at this year, particularly heading into the assessment schedule. So kudos to all the teachers who are making this a reality.
And for their students, for their hard work.
Yes.
Yes. We're fortunate to, it's really, the iReady analysis of our data has really become part of our school culture. So we're really fortunate that our teachers have become quite comfortable utilizing the data for the best interest of the kids. These are kind of the common questions that we think about. In fact, I know Oak Ridge today at their PD session, this is exactly what they were doing, was having data chats with their building administration and their instructional coaches around their iReady data. So these are some of the bigger picture questions that we we ask ourselves, and kind of typical action steps that we take when there's a need.
I'd also like to thank the committee for helping us to invest in adaptive software that meets kids where they are, to give them practice. I was watching this great video on particularly students with ADHD. And what's one of the biggest challenges with homework, you're sitting, writing out your homework, there's no response, there's no consequence to it. And with some of these adaptive tools, a student knows right away whether or not he or she or they got it wrong, and they can adjust and they get feedback on it. And I think that's one of the power of the digital tools that we have for kids.
Any questions?
Jones. I knew she was coming with something. What do you got?
Oh, no, what I learned last year or the year before was probably the greatest indicator is not only that the green band is getting longer and the others are getting shorter, but that the tremendous growth within a brief period of time, once the summer cobwebs are brushed away, our kids are getting moving, and that's very encouraging, especially when I looked at something somewhere that said, you know, math performance across the country is going like this, and it was citing calculus, which is kind of unique, but still, it's so encouraging to see the improvement within the individual and across cohorts. It's great.
Anyone else? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on, other topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair. I have none. Next up is the approval of the FY 2027 Sandwich Public Schools operational budget.
Okay,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You've got some new stuff to present.
Oh, you already proposed.
well, yeah, not.
That's okay.
Essentially, what I presented, what is this now? 4 weeks ago? Yeah, it was 4 weeks ago. Wow. No, 3 weeks ago, right? Yeah, 3 weeks ago. A lot of it hasn't changed, so I'm not going to go ad nauseum through all of this data, but realize the budget that you'd be voting on now becomes a $42,205,431 proposal. It no longer is 2.22%, it's now 2.60%. The town's contribution does not change. Again, all of these key pieces that were very much aligned with our goals are still intact. The piece that changes I have represented here. When I presented this on January 7th, we had the Chapter 70 as flat. As I said before during superintendent's report, the House 1 budget has us at an increase of $159,300 or 1.98%. So that's really essentially the difference in the budget. Other than that, everything is the same as was presented to you on the 7th and the 14th. I do, as I noted before, what we are projecting is to take that additional money and put it into facilities, into buildings and grounds, and increase the investment to the carpet and floor project. I apologize, I have a typo. That should be 359, I believe, 300. Kevin asked for some data, so I'm going to give data. I looked in my iPhone camera roll, and I did a search for classroom, and I wanted to find a picture that showed the most despicable conditions of carpeting. And that is a classroom from Forestdale on the left. To be fair, okay, I'm going to be 100% honest. That was right after we had the water damage from the freezing. Okay, so our Forestdale classrooms, no, in 2023 didn't really look that way. But I think, unfortunately, it's a bad snapshot of, you know, how rough that carpet was and is. On the right, I think I just took in December. That is a classroom, a 5th grade classroom at Oak Ridge. You can kind of see what the vinyl flooring looks like. You can also see some of the upgrades from Capital of investing in new furniture that's kind of modular, that you can move into different configurations. So I think you could see the physical environment of the classroom on the right is far superior. So Michael Ryan shared these statistics with me. At present time, we have 40 classrooms out of 90 that still have carpeting that we'd like to address. So he's got the column, just so you know, VCT stands for vinyl composite tile. LVT is luxury vinyl tile. Please don't ask me to distinguish the difference. I know a lot of stuff I don't know, but Michael's plan is to, you know, LVT, to provide LVT to Oak Ridge and Forestdale classrooms. So try to follow his calculus. I think it kind of makes sense. As we've reported during February break, 6 additional classrooms are getting done. So that brings us down to 34. Okay. The game plan, based upon the bid that he put out, was initially to do another 12 when we start FY27 in July, July 1st of this year. That brings us down to 22. Just so you know, and I know Kevin was kind of doing back of the envelope, back of the napkin kind of calculations. The bid, when it went out to bid for 12 classrooms, was the low bid that met the specs, was $99,425. So you do some quick math, it's roughly $8,300 per classroom. So if you were to say, okay, that's $100,000 with the additional $259,000 and similar bid results, which I don't think is beyond the realm of possibility, we could do another 22 classrooms in total in the beginning of FY22, starting with 12 this summer, splitting the 2 schools. So subtract out now that additional 12, that brings us down to 10.
259?
Yeah, and actually you have money left over.
What's the additional 259?
So we have a grand total of $359,000 that we're proposing towards this line item.
Oh, minus the 99 top.
Yeah,
Okay.
roughly $100,000. So his game plan then for the remaining 10 would be to use the holiday break and then February and April break to figure out the remaining 10. You probably would also have leftover funds to also redo the Oak Ridge Library as well, the flooring in there. So I think it gets us to exactly where we need to be by taking this Chapter 70 and allocating it to that specific line for that project. Correct.
Spring of 2027, April break.
Correct. Gets us where we need to be. So that's the only fascinating thing that I have this evening. Otherwise, everything is status quo with regard to the budget that's been presented. I think it's a fiscally responsible budget, but it also gets us where we need to be.
Thank you. Thank you for all the hard work put in
Um,
for the last few months.
I mean, I asked those questions at the last meeting. I don't know, to me, it was time. It was a keep the faith thing, and the fact that we have these numbers ahead of time. It allows us to do this, I think, is right. I am somewhat a little cautious because there's always the unknown. You know, we had to pay money to take down light towers, and we had to replace boilers. Let's use this money. If I know the governor's budget is, what was it, 1.98, the 159.3. If somehow through all the machinations at Beacon Hill they end up with more,
Which is definitely in the realm of the possibility, because if you recall, we ended up with 324,000 additional for FY '26. So typically the House one or the governor's budget is usually the most conservative.
right? Not to put the chairs and the chair of the select boards in the audience, but I don't know if not to put him on the spot. But if you talk to Bill, I would assume that we would follow past practice where at a special town meeting, if there was extra, it would come back to us because we certainly have other deferred maintenance we could address. Did you ever have that discussion at all?
Not explicitly, but we can have that discussion. I totally don't want to speak for Bill, and the best I could do is speculate, but I can't underscore. I think things are extremely tentative right now, and the big concern overall for the town's budget, along with the school writ large, is healthcare insurance. We don't have definitive numbers. I had a superintendent's roundtable of Cape and the Islands in southeastern Massachusetts. We're not alone. Every community in our region is really struggling. Some of these smaller regional school districts are actually looking at healthcare insurance increases of 40%. So if we get through this with 15%, we're probably doing pretty well, but I think things are still really early and really tentative right now.
No, I'm good. So I'm sorry. Any other questions for the superintendent? I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the Sandwich Public Schools operational budget totaling $42,205,431 as presented tonight.
Second.
That'd be for FY27. I apologize. I didn't write that
FY27
down.
budget, yes.
I have a motion by Ms. Benenda, second by Ms. Goodwin. Any discussion? I'll just say, we've had multiple meetings on this. We had a gentleman come and, ask a bunch of questions, which was awesome. A lot of work going back to, I don't know how many hours go into this small little document. But I just want to thank everybody that was involved. I think it's very prudent. When we had the tri-board, our guidance was 3.5, and we're coming in under that. So I think this is a very responsible budget. The fact that we can keep the faith with our teachers and finish those rooms is going to help me walk home tonight feeling pretty good about it. So, any other comments or discussion? I will take a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? It passes unanimously, 6-0. Well done, all. Okay, this is...
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
if I could make a request, is it possible to do a one-pager on the non-athletic? I think that was a really good point.
So I will take Jeff's questions and realize the actual document, it goes through different permutations if you haven't noticed it. My next round of presentation will be February 10th to his committee, and then I think afterwards we've got the select board. So yeah, I
Great.
always add pages. That's wicked simple.
I agree, Sue. I thought that was a very... when he said that. So,
Yeah.
that was awesome. Any other comments, questions? All right. Next up is Liaison Advisory Committee reports. Ms. Benenda.
Quick liaison for this Sandwich CPAC Special Ed Parent Advisory Council. Just to save the date, tentatively a meeting is being planned on Tuesday, February 24th, 6 p.m., hopefully at the Oak Ridge Library, and Director of Pupil Services Jen Healy will be on hand giving an update on special education in our district. So tentatively February 24th.
The Safety Security Committee meeting, or committee met last week. They did, they talked about evacuation as part of the PD day, or I'm sorry, last Wednesday during PD. I had hoped to attend it, I did not, but SROs and other officers were there talking to the teachers about really what you would do if, in the event they had to evacuate on short notice. So,
I had the opportunity to go to the Oak Ridge one. The SROs, along with Sergeant Gilrain, were there. They were outstanding. Just a lot of small group discussions about thinking about possibilities and so on. It was terrific.
not everything's a huge exercise. Sometimes it's smaller, but the focus remains, and we're continuing to make progress there. So, and it's every time I go to that meeting, it's a room stuff, which shows the commitment. So good stuff there. Anyone else? Seeing none. Next up is warrants.
I make a motion that we approve the warrants that were signed tonight.
Motion by Ms. Menendez, second by Ms. Goodwin. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Passes 6-0. Next up is our second public forum of the evening. Would anybody like to come forward for public forum? Going once, going twice. Nobody's moving. So we'll close public forum. Next up is future agenda items. Dr. Miller.
Did we ever resolve or the memorandum of understanding for the SROs? Is that in transition, update, whatever, but perhaps we could have an update on the program since there were personnel changes?
Yeah,
and whatnot.
we do have somebody new coming on board next month.
Great.
So, yeah.
Thank you, Sue. Anyone else? Seeing none. Next up is acknowledgements, closing remarks.
Can I acknowledge somebody?
Sure.
I really want to take the time to acknowledge our facilities director, Michael Ryan, assistant facilities director, Peter Lombardo. You know, snow days are tough. They really are. You know, I can say that firsthand. And, you know, the work that has been done, you know, Michael and his crew, our custodians, our maintenance, our building and grounds people, were here, you know, while probably most of us were watching the Patriots win the AFC championship. And, you know, Michael actually had cots set up for the guys, you know, food and so on. So it's a ton of work. I also want to take the time to acknowledge, you know, our town officials, specifically J.J. Burke, who really gave a lot of leadership, you know, along with Paul Tilton and, you know, Bud Dunham and so on. We had a series of 4 Zoom meetings through Sunday and actually Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday, to kind of just check in how we were doing as departments. When you're making these decisions, it's not easy, and sometimes you kind of feel alone. And just having partnership with those people through a pretty challenging snowstorm was terrific. So I just want to say hats off and express my gratitude.
I'll just mention, I know, you know, that it's probably his favorite thing is to make that go no on snow day. The Tuesday snow day, one of the issues was, in addition to road conditions, 2 of the buses broke down and they were blocking other buses from getting out. So there was, you know, some might have said, why didn't you tell us sooner? Well, part of it was the buses worked the day before and they actually cleaned the bus lot.
Yeah.
But that was an unexpected curveball that morning, and I think it was the prudent decision. And despite my daughter's disappointment, there was not a 2-hour delay this morning, despite her lobbying efforts for me to call the soup.
I think it was definitely the right decision
Thank
to
you.
be made. It really was.
So,
And now rest up for this weekend because there's another storm coming through. Get ready for your Zoom meetings. Yeah, you might want to. Yeah.
All right, any other acknowledgements? Again, thanks to the entire staff for putting the budget together. I think it's very prudent. And if my plan holds, I'm probably going to be on the Martha's Vineyard watching my daughter play basketball in her senior year. But if any of you are available to go to the FinCom on the 10th, I would just mark your calendar. The gentleman to my right will do the heavy lifting, but I think being present as a show of support is a good thing. So, next up is adjournment.
I move that we adjourn tonight's regular business meeting and let's adjourn to executive session per Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, for reason number 3, to discuss strategy and negotiations for collective bargaining with the SEA Unit A teachers. The committee will not reconvene to open session.
Motion by Ms. Nenda, second by Ms. Goodwin. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.